Absolutely.
Okay, lovely. Ren, welcome to the extra segment here on Rugby Unlocked this week. And Russ is named his team. Very different types of players, especially in the 9-10 over here, as well as different player 11. Obviously, a lot of these are injury enforced, but the 10 specifically is a tactical adjustment and a very different looking bench as well. We lacked a bit of leadership last week, I felt, in terms of when the going gets tough, how do we reset? How do we analyze what's in front of us and adjust? And a lot of that comes down to experience, which is why, should Siakisi be fit this weekend, we will have the most experienced Springbok team of all time. When some people will turn around and say, oh, that just means the oldest team. But I think the experience is very deliberate. Andre Pollard, Deon Free, Thomas du Toit, these are players who have been in title-winning sides. Thomas du Toit has been phenomenal at Bath, for example. Louis Diaga, he's captained the Boks. Andre Pollard, he is the Iceman. What are we changing now this weekend from last weekend in terms of how we're going to hopefully level the series?
Steve, thanks so much for having me on again, and for us, deep diving into, trying to figure out a little bit more about, what happens within any team. And obviously for us, the core is focusing on South Africa and New Zealand in this greatest rivalry, and obviously with the weekend coming up. But yeah, I just think that for Rassie Erasmus, and a Felix Jones, as well as a Don Heeman, and all of the influential coaches that are there, the tactical realignment is not just sacrificing, the experimentation to restore deep experience, but it's about the controlled kicking, and I think the clinical red zone execution, Steve. And that's the ultimate, countermeasure to the Ellis Park paradox that we've seen. In Ellis Park,
I love the control part of that. I think that's the problem. We lost control of the game, and that's the thing. We spoke about it in the full episode, and we said that when the other team can start making sure that you don't get to play your rugby, that's when they've won, inverted commas.
Absolutely. So control is such a very interesting thing because it obviously touches on the leadership aspect of it, and leadership in various platforms have got different key roles, but in a rugby context, leadership means that you're able to direct the team's entire structure into a way that it just gets us over the line. And we use that that phrase very verbatimly, getting us over the line. But in rugby, it literally means getting us to get over that line and score points. You cannot win a rugby game if you do not score enough points. Actually, I love Coach Malusi always says, you can score against me, but I'll score more than you. So it's okay.
Yeah.
As long as I score more than you, I don't care. And the reality of the matter is, Steve, for our audience, we have seen, and obviously a team released, which gives us the following. And again, these are preconceived ideas that we sometimes formulate as rugby spectators, as pundits, as people on the side. But we think the symptoms were that we lacked, midfield calmness, tactical kicking deficit. And I mean, our 0.7 points per entry stat, which is quite scary. So I think Kobus Reinach and Andre Pollard being named in the starting lineup is not necessarily such a bad idea because of what they've produced in the past. And we don't want to go into player profiles too much, because that's not what we're about. There are other people that will criticize Sasha and will do that stuff. No, we're talking specifically about what can the realignment bring from a leadership perspective, and what can it bring from an experience perspective. And I talk about experience in the same way that we look at the following, Steve. We've previously lost a opening game in a World Cup where we went on to go win. In the British and Irish Lions tour, we lost a critical game. We came back, and mostly it was people that, personnel that we brought back on who in their lives have had situations where they've been able to say, okay, cool, come back and, bring us stability. And stability means a lot of things for different people. But I think for a Springbok context, stability means that can we take, Cheslin kicking to goal and then being taken off. That means that Sasha maybe might not be on song in terms of kicking. You don't want to have any of those type of debates among players or coaches. And I'm not saying that Sasha can't kick to poles but Henry, you know what you're getting out of him, and you
Yeah, and
know that
again,
you're able to.
you're going to a different plan. Things are changing from what in an ideal situation you'd want to do. And as I said, everyone knows Sasha's a very competent goal kicker, so that wouldn't. I think that had we and Damien Willemse is somebody who's working really hard, but this was the plan, and then the plan started changing.
Yep.
Also, I think Ronaldo, a big important thing for this weekend in terms of a tactical realignment. Cape Town is expected to be wet. So as well,
Well,
courses.
I'm down here now, Steve, and it's quite sunny. But I've seen the weather forecast for this weekend. It's gonna be a bit of an interesting one.
Well, let's hope it is weird because we've definitely picked a side that's going to negotiate some tricky weather.
But maybe can I comment on that as well? We are living in the modern era of rugby players, and I say modern era, their equipment and the way in which they prepare and the way in which they look at different weather conditions sometimes has an influence them. I, for example, think more and more of the following: the reason why we've picked this team is because we want a system that we can. And we don't mind being predictable. South Africa's, and again, it's about playing the most unstructured, the most structured attack that can destabilize an unstructured defense. Because New Zealand don't really have a structured defensive system. They do interesting things. They would sometimes go for the jackal. Sometimes they would just stand off. Sometimes they would, for example, try and get a double hit on you. Sometimes they don't even contest at your breakdown. They just do a nice leg tackle. They want you to make the mistakes. So if you do consistent stuff and you do the mundane things right over and over and over again, you kind of force them to have to make a decision as to, listen, I'm going to have to try and steal this ball because I'm deprived of possession. So that's the important tactical alignment that we have to look at for this. So again, like I said, Rashi's selection pathway, Henry being brought back to inject that championship calmness, right direction, or just the rigidness of it. And this is the elite territory thing there for me, Quibus. And I think for me, I've played against Morne van der Berg. I've played with him in sevens structures. For me, if we do have that, ability to have set a good baseline, Morne can come on board and he's good with his kicking, but he's very underrated scrum half that I think is brought onto the bench because he's a very good impact. Morne has got great acceleration. He almost has this Grant Williams vibe to him without looking like Grant Williams. So he's able to snipe and he's able to do that. So I really, really think that Morne being brought on the bench is there to make sure that if we do have that dominance in terms of building scoreboard pressure, we're able to still accelerate. I do see this Cape Town game as South Africa definitely back on the cards. And I do think we're going to be a lot more consistent in executing our
I think that's the point. Consistency. And I said, we've had the conversation. Oh, it's boring rugby, and I'm so bored of the narrative of as soon as because everyone says, oh no, we didn't win because we didn't throw the ball around. I'm like, we were dropping the ball when we did try it. We were dropping the ball. There were errors there as well. You can't just say that the solution is to try and throw the ball around. Again, the All Blacks waited before that. They earned the right to start playing. If we have to go back to basics and grind out a win, we go back to basics and we grind out a win. At the end of the day, I don't care about the World Cup right now. I don't care about the style of rugby player. We need to get a victory this weekend. We have to respond. And if that means we have to go back into our shell and get the game, then welcome to Test match rugby. This is the thing. I got criticized for it. I said Test match rugby. Yes, it's very nice when we score points and 42-10, phenomenal. If I gave you 42-10 or 13-12 in the World Cup final, which one are you taking? And you're probably taking the World Cup final here. So at the end of the day, right now, we are completely results-based. And it's frustrating that we didn't manage to be able to bring in what we wanted to, but I think that tactically New Zealand got it right and we got it wrong. This weekend, I think we have given ourselves a much better chance of just getting the basics right and being able to bring New Zealand back into what we want them to do. We dictate the terms. And if we start dictating the terms, I still think pound for pound, we are a better team.
Yeah. Absolutely, Steve. And I really look forward to it. And this is the reason why, just from a greatest rivalry perspective, this is the reason why you get tested against the world's best. And you want to be able to put up your hand and say, in this particular era of being tested from a being analyzed perspective, being looked at as players, what is it that we did to be the difference? Because that's the reality of the matter. Is, in a world where rugby is so scrutinized, everyone, I mean, there's so many YouTubers and people that are out there that make their comments, but can the South African, personnel, I'm talking about the players, the coaches and everyone, can they come forth with a plan that they are comfortable with, that they are able to execute, and that can deliver winning rugby? And winning doesn't, again, beautiful rugby, and I know the commercialization of sport has had a massive influence in what flashy rugby and all of the nice things, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and
What sells?
exactly. But at the end of the day, the game was invented specifically so that we can outwit, outlast, and outplay the opposition. So can
It's
you
funny you
do
say
that?
that. Sorry, it's just we were laughing last night that we were talking about previous results, and because the Lions playing the All Blacks tonight as we record this, and the first time they
Yes.
ever played against each other, Transvaal beat the All Blacks 6-0,
Yeah.
and we were laughing
6-0.
like you go look at those score lines back in the day, and they were low score lines. Yes, they were playing with basically a leather brick and playing on mud patches, and there were a bunch of a lot of them were basically miners and and laborers who would come from the pub. So there was no professionalization. But again, also they didn't worry about the product at the end of the day. And it's easy to go look at highlights of like the times when they did run, but that at the end of the day it was a messy, messy game. And again,
Mm.
the commercialization, the product, we trying to create a product versus a sport, and that's why we kind of so intent of, and we've been trained to
Yeah.
believe that good rugby is running rugby, it's entertaining rugby. We've been trained that that is what we want. We are an attention economy, environment these days where we've got low attention spans. We need quick action all the time. So we've been trained to believe that is what's good.
Yeah.
Running good, scrum bad, and yet we've now seen that the Boks have been so good with doing it. And I spoke to Junior Reddinghaus yesterday, and he said, he's like, guys, when have you ever heard of a crowd chanting scrum, scrum, scrum? Because we're now starting to see, but actually this is where the value is. And again,
Yeah.
return on investment, people, return on investment. What is going to
Absolutely.
give you the
Yeah.
greatest return with the least amount of investment? And that is what we are at now. What can we get? How do we get the biggest gains this weekend without risking the most?
Yeah. And I do want to maybe make this final comment from my side, Steve, is a lot of players, ex-players, current players, referees, and everyone have got their perspective of what the reality is. And Rassi always says there's our truth, there's their truth, and then there's the truth. For us on Rugby Unlocked, we want to try and look at the facts. The facts of the matter is if you score the most amount of points and you're able to prevent the other team from scoring, you are successful. And we want to try and educate and, help people understand this beautiful game of rugby more and more. And we want to try and preserve it. And I'm unfortunately a rugby purist. Actually, fortunately, you are. And a lot of people that are out there, putting content, I think sometimes have desensitized our, public on what rugby actually is supposed to be. And for me, it's more about us making sure we understand rugby itself is played in a spirit, that's fantastic, but also it's there to actually build community and at the end of the day, really be for the enjoyment of what rugby is supposed to be. And rugby's
And for
got its
everyone,
principles.
I think that's also the point. For everyone, whether you're the 135 kg prop, where that just likes to scrum. As somebody made a comment, he said, Jasper Wiese was amazing, but isn't he just so one dimensional? I said, well, yes, he's one dimensional in that he will run over you time and time again. He'll steal the ball on the ground, and if he has to make a tackle, he'll smash you. What do you want from him?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, cool. He doesn't throw the Archie Same and offload, but why would you want him to do that? Why overcomplicate someone who is the best at the world at what he does? And that's the whole point of rugby, is being able to say that Jasper is, and not say that he can't throw passes, but that's his skill. His skill is, I'm going to run over you. I'm going to use physicality. And I always say that he's underrated in terms of he's a big guy, but watch the lines that he runs. He's an intelligent player. It's far too easy to just say he's a big brute that runs over people. He's an intelligent player. That's his skill set.
Correct. And you need the right personnel next to him and around him to understand what is happening. Any team that Yasser plays in, the synergy is he knows. I mean, there was a couple of clips when I love when we were still playing for CUT and the Cheetahs where Jasper would just dominate contact. But then his ability to offload post contact is what was so good, because there was obviously now more players on him, but now he's able to pass, but he can't pass to nobody. So you've got to have the right personnel next to all these dominant carriers or line break players. So
and it was
awesome.
also now, in the Cheetahs, who are always a throw the ball around team as well, to a certain degree, also a different environment in terms of play the pass. Whereas sometimes, very tactically from a Bok point of view, we'll just pace play. Right, cool. Mani, what are you going to do? And that's when we can see the cross kicks and the likes of that. So, and this is what the nice thing about, if you go look at the attacking thing, it's building that, attacking is not about how do I score a try at the first phase. It's what can I do within a group of phases that leads to points, whether that's 4 to 6 phases. And we say that we want to do it as soon as possible, but even that, even if it's 1, 2, 3 quick phases, quick ball, and then boom, there's the cross-stick try. But it's about putting that all together and understanding, cool, here in broken play, Jasper's going to offload. Here, he's not going to offload. He's just going to put his head down, and he's incredibly good at, he just finds, I don't know what it is. He just keeps going. No. And there's so often he'll just almost like burst a tackle, look up and be like, oh, cool, I'm still going to get going. So Absolutely. That's the role. That's the role. Wilco Lolly's role is to fold scrums, and he does fold scrums. So I think the point we're getting at here is that to enjoy rugby, you've got to understand that being big and physical is a skill. And it's so minimalistic, revisionist, and poor to just sit there saying, oh, we're just big and bulky. Well, okay, but that's the point of the game, is that there's a place for the big and bulky, just like there's a place for Grant Williams and Curtly Orense. And I mention those two because if you walk past them in the mall and you didn't recognize them, you would never sit there and say, oh, that guy can play international rugby. Oh, he can win a World Cup. They are small players, genuinely small players. Cobus Reinach is a terrible example. That guy's a pocket rocket. His biceps are the size of my head. Curtly Orense is genuinely skinny. Like he is. Like he's a small guy, but he can still play at the highest level. And that's the point of the beautiful game that we love.
Yeah. Absolutely, Steve. Can't agree with you more there. Thank you, Steve, for today. It was absolutely phenomenal, my man.
People get involved every year. We do a bonus segment every single week that is available to our members immediately and available to the rest of the public throughout the day. And big shout out to everybody for joining us throughout both episodes. And we will see you guys all very, very soon.